Driving kills.
Here and Now, with Karl Wells and Ann Budgell.
Good evening. In Newfoundland and Labrador tonight.
Relieved refugees, 152 Sri Lankans arrive in St. John's. They want to call Canada home.
Rescued from crowded lifeboats, fishermen tell how they found the Sri Lankans bobbing in the ocean.
And idle hands, almost 5,000 construction workers go on strike to fight double-breasting.
Who are they? Where did they come from? And how did they end up in lifeboats only 10 kilometers off the Newfoundland coast? There's plenty of mystery surrounding the 152 refugees brought to St. John's this morning. They say they are Tamils, a minority threatened by an unfriendly political climate in their homeland of Sri Lanka, a small island off the coast of India. Jay Callanan reports on the puzzle.
The Fisheries Patrol vessel Leonard J. Cowley sailed through the Narrows into St. John's Harbour about 6:30 this morning. It was a foggy welcome to Newfoundland for 152 Sri Lankan refugees on board it. Local police, immigration and medical people were at the ready once the vessel was moored. About 10 of the refugees needed medical care, although none was considered to be in serious condition. Most of the refugees are young men in their 20s, but there are also some women. Among the refugees as well are 4 families and some babies. Some of the refugees looked frightened after what they say was a harrowing 5 days at sea. The refugees say they were set adrift from a large vessel with an Oriental crew into 2 small open lifeboats. They say they drifted in these boats until they were picked up yesterday afternoon by local fishing boats off St. Shots on the southern shore.
Were you very hungry? Did you have anything to eat?
No, nothing.
Nothing for 5 days?
5 days, nothing. Only he gave 3 gallon water.
However, at a news conference this afternoon, the RCMP questioned the refugees' claim about spending 5 days at sea.
They certainly weren't wet, and I think anyone would appreciate that if you're 5 days in the fog and rain, you probably would be wet in an open lifeboat. They weren't wet. They were in excellent condition.
Labourers also retraced the steps the refugees took before they ended up in waters off Newfoundland.
They refer to an agency in India, and indications are that they came from different parts of their country, and they indicate to us through their stories that they then traveled to India to an assembly point through an agency and boarded the ship while the ship stood off the coast of India.
How much did that cost?
Different ones paid different amounts of money.
What range? What ranges? What range?
Well, we're told that the range was from 3,000 to 5,000 US per person.
Labour says the refugees also claim they left the agency's boat voluntarily. The refugees had hoped to go to Montreal, and it's still a mystery how they ended up in Newfoundland. There are just as many questions about what happens to them now. They say they want to stay in Canada. However,
well, it's very difficult to say at this time what's going to be the case, whether this is the only boatload or whether there's going to be more. And we have to process them more thoroughly in the next 2 or 3 days and send our information to national headquarters, and I would imagine national headquarters are going to have to make that decision at this time.
The Immigration Department and the police will conduct many more interviews with the refugees. There will also be an effort made to find the vessel that set them adrift. But at this point, the police say they don't know the name or the location of the boat. If they do find the ship, the operators could be charged with conspiracy to bring people into the country illegally. Jay Callanan, CBC News, St. John's.
An immigration official in Ottawa says the Sri Lankans will probably be allowed to stay in Canada. Robert Greenslade says Canada has a policy of not deporting people back to refugee-producing countries such as Sri Lanka.
Meanwhile, the Department of National Defense has been called in to aid in the search for the ship that set the refugees adrift. Military aircraft are searching the Atlantic off the south coast of the island. It's believed they're looking for a ship called the Regina Maris. The skipper of one of the fishing boats involved in the rescue last night says the name of the vessel was stenciled on life jackets some of the refugees wore. The name was also faintly visible on the lifeboats themselves. The island of Sri Lanka is home to some 15 million people. 70% are Sinhalese Buddhists and 20% are Tamils of the Hindu religion. The two groups have lived side by side for hundreds of years and have been fighting almost that long. The island was under British rule for a century and a half, but gained independence in 1948. With their own government, the two sides then argued about how each would be represented in the parliament. Some Tamils did not want to cooperate with the Sinhalese, and a movement for a separate Tamil state then arose. When efforts to negotiate that separate state failed, the Tamils turned to violence. This massacre was blamed on Tamil guerrillas. 150 people were killed. The bombing of this communications building in the capital city of Colombo was also said by the police to be the work of Tamil terrorists. That violence has caused the army, mostly Sinhalese, to retaliate, sometimes killing innocent Tamil civilians. In one 18-month period, over 2,000 deaths have been recorded as the result of terrorist violence and army retaliation. Today, Sri Lanka is in the midst of an undeclared and bloody civil war. Joining me in the studio now is Dr. Steve Keller. He's on the faculty at Memorial University, a specialist in South Asian politics. He's worked with refugee organizations both in Cambodia and Afghanistan and lived in India for many years. And Dr. Keller, can you tell me what life would have been like in Sri Lanka for Tamil people such as these who are not terrorists but just trying to lead an ordinary life under the difficult circumstances?
Well, recently it's become more and more chancy as they're caught between the armed forces and the Tamil liberation forces. And there's this tit-for-tat violence that's going on. And the army and police forces have been quite repressive in their treatment of Tamils. Outside the Tamil majority areas, they're subject to mob violence. Inside the Tamil areas, the security forces make sweeps and actually have bombed their own civilians.
It's not surprising then to hear that people would be leaving. I wonder, in the work that you've done with refugee organizations, do you know much about Tamils leaving and how they normally try to leave Sri Lanka?
In the cases that I'm most aware of are Tamils who have managed to get on, usually East Bloc airlines, that fly either to East Bloc capitals or directly to East Berlin, and with transiting in East Berlin to East Bloc capitals. And if they get off the plane in East Berlin, then all they have to do is cross the border into West Berlin, and then as soon as they're in West Berlin, they're in West Germany, and they can ask for refugee status.
Have you ever heard of a case like this one? Some of these refugees apparently say that they paid as much as $3,000 to someone to secure their freedom. Have you ever heard of this sort of thing going on before?
No. In the case of Haitians, I think we've heard of cases like that, and Vietnamese boat people. One of the recent developments that's just come out this week, and it certainly would have been after they started their journey, is that the West Germans and East Germans are trying to find a way to plug this. The West Germans claim that they have between 100 and 150,000 refugees right now that they cannot handle, and they're asking other countries to help. So that loophole may be plugged, and maybe more Sri Lankans will be trying other routes now.
Well, why do you think these people ended up in Canada? Why here?
Well, from talking to other refugees that I've worked with, Canada has a very good reputation for hospitality, and there also is the fact that Canada doesn't usually turn people away. Even if their claims for refugee status are invalid, sooner or later people get regularized. At least that's the reputation that this country has.
In all the years that you've been associated with refugees and you know, the things they try to do to leave a country, have you ever heard about anything like this? So many people, a couple of lifeboats?
Yeah, I think it was very common with the Haitians and the Vietnamese. I think it's not at all extraordinary, but it is unusual for the Sri Lankans, I think.
And so far away from home.
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Keller, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The arrival of the Sri Lankan refugees in St. John's touched off a scramble to find food, shelter, and clothing for the unexpected visitors. And as officials looked after their material needs, some of the refugees revealed some of the details of this mysterious voyage. Deanne Fleet of CBC has that story.
I am sleeping on the floor, on the downstairs. It's very dirty. A bedraggled and very tired group of Sri Lankans looked forward this evening to the relief of showers and food. Anthony Abraham says they were kept below decks for a month on the boat that brought them here, unable to wash and with little food. They thought they were going to Montreal, but when they reached the coast of Newfoundland, they were told to get off the boat.
Did they make you get off? Did they force you to get off?
Yes, they forced it. Yes, they did.
You didn't want to get off?
She told me I cannot to go other way. She told me.
You can't go all the way?
The other way. Yes.
Did they have guns?
Abraham says they made the trip to escape civil war in their country. The Sri Lankans are being housed in 2 residences on the campus of Memorial University. It's being organized by the Canadian Red Cross. They spent most of the past 36 hours gathering food and necessities like diapers for the children. This is the best spread these refugees have seen for a while. But reporters were kept away from them, and most of the information was second-hand.
I believe at the moment the situation is that security will be quite extreme for a while. They will not be permitted to roam free. I understand from the university people they have one of the dining halls made available to us. It certainly will be under security for the next couple of days anyway, until some kind of decision is made as to what will happen.
The Sri Lankans spent their morning being fingerprinted, photographed, and interviewed by the RCMP. Then they were slowly moved to the Memorial campus. 10 of the men were taken to the emergency ward of the Health Science Center, but most had no serious problems.
We have 10 patients who are brought in the main minor problems. There's basically just one patient who has a serious medical problem that's being investigated and may very well require admission. The other 9 or so patients have minor problems, bump knees and this sort of thing, some upper respiratory infections, colds, and that's about it.
The Red Cross and the Association for New Canadians say they'll accept cash donations, but they want to wait before organizing anything elaborate.
A few people have called to offer clothing and that, but right now we don't know where that stands, and we will let people know at a later date if we want donations of clothing. Until then, if anyone has anything, just hold on to it.
I'm Deanne Fleet for Here and Now.
A little later in the program, we'll be talking with the fishermen who rescued the refugees last night in St. Mary's Bay. Coming up on Here and Now.
Well, what are we supposed to do? Live for nothing? $6 an hour, can't do it, don't mind.
Picket signs instead of picks and shovels. Construction workers go on strike across Newfoundland.
Looking for an interesting and challenging career that has excellent employment opportunities in the province's growing mineral industry? Then why not enroll for training as a mining engineering technician in the Mineral Technology program at the Bay St. George Community College? This 2-year diploma program trains students in mineral exploration, mining methods, mineral processing, and analysis using the most up-to-date equipment. Contact the Bay St. George Community College in Stephenville, 643-5161.
25 of the best songs ever written have now been recorded by one of the most popular orchestras ever. The master, James Last. It may be his best album ever. The critics love it. Don't forget Hollytown's Leave the Best to Last. It's in stores now.
Introducing B&K Carpet's new lines for 1986 from Burlington. Classic Supreme, a soft, elegant velvet plush in today's fashion colors. Heavy traffic rated and stain resistant. The carpet with a 10-year wear guarantee. As an introductory offer, during the month of August, we are giving away absolutely free 1/2-inch foam underlay and professional installation. With no money down and no payments till February 1987, what are you waiting for? Call our toll-free number right now so one of our experienced salespeople will come to your door and take your order.
The affordable Fords from Regatta. Lower prices, lower interest rates, lower monthly payments, giving you our best value on great Ford cars and trucks. Bronco 2s as low as $15,500, payments as low as $280 a month. Rangers as low as $79.95, payments as low as $159 a month. The affordable Fords from Regatta Ford, St. John's and Spaniards Bay.
This is a picture of white horses galloping past a red barn and a golden wheat field. A picture produced by the Kodak Color Watch system, the most precise quality control system ever applied to color photo finishing. And as good as your TV picture is, it's not good enough to show you this. The only place that is good enough is your Kodak Color Watch system dealer. Take a look.
Major construction projects across the province were at a standstill today. 5,000 construction workers have gone on strike in a dispute over double breasting. That's where unionized companies set up dummy companies to get around paying union wages. We have two reports. First, Deborah Collins in St. John's.
Construction workers did appear on their sites this morning, but just long enough to pick up their tools and lunch boxes. 5,000 plumbers, electricians, bricklayers, in all a dozen trade unions have gone out together, shutting down all major construction in the province. In St. John's alone, a hotel and convention center, an office tower, a supermarket complex, and a new school for the deaf. The issue is double breasting, where an employer sets up a non-union company to compete with his own unionized employees. Unions say they're losing work to the lower-paid non-unions. But the employer says the only way to eliminate double breasting is for unions to take a cut in pay, up to $6 an hour. The workers say, no way.
Well, what are we supposed to do? Live for nothing? $6 an hour cut, do it, don't mind.
Today's strike is an unusually quiet one, probably because no one's crossing the picket lines. Most trades are out, those who aren't won't cross. And many workers still don't know all the details.
But for one thing, we haven't given enough information to comment on it.
Union spokesman Randy Earle says agents for all 12 unions are now in the process of informing strikers around the province. He says they already know the generalities. The details will be filled in as the strike unfolds. But there's one thing they all know without being told. If the strike's not settled within a week or two, they'll be out for a long time. Deborah Collins, CBC News, St. John's.
This is Terry LeDrew in Corner Brook. The strike's creating one big headache for the people who own the city's paper mill. Kruger Incorporated and government have poured millions of dollars into modernizing the mill and its equipment. Now, 100 men hired to do that have stopped work. A company vice president says they'd hope to have enough of the work done by October, in time for Kruger to put a higher quality newsprint on the world market. He says the delay caused by the strike is going to hurt the people of the city. Executives will meet in Corner Brook Thursday to decide what action to take. There's no sense of that urgency outside the mill's gates. The two people who were on the picket line ran off when we showed up and refused to talk. There are a couple of other pickets set up at smaller unionized businesses around town and one forlorn sign at the site of Grenfell College's new office space and temporary arts building. The one other main project in town is steaming right along. The new Royal Newfoundland Constabulary building is being built with non-unionized labor, although there are a couple of union members on site. Contractor Frank White says, however, things could change.
As of yet, we haven't seen a picket line here, and if they did put up one, well, I guess we'd honor it, you know.
You would honor it?
I think we would, you know, unless now the general contractor got out to us and told us to go through, I want my work done or whatever, well then, you know.
You'd be caught between a rock and a hard place.
That's right.
Terry LeDrew, CBC News, Corner Brook. And now from Toronto, we go for the CBC National and International News of the Day with Sheldon Turcott.
The provincial premiers have reached two agreements at their annual meeting in Edmonton. They deal with free trade and Quebec and the Constitution. Anna Maria Tremonti reports.
The Edmonton Declaration. The premiers unanimously agreed.
They were calling it historic. The 10 premiers have agreed to discussions, they'd be federal and provincial, to try to bring Quebec into the Constitution. It doesn't mean they agree to the 5-point proposal Robert Bourassa brought to Edmonton. It does mean they want to at least sit down and explore his ideas.
I think it's good for the Canadian unity that all the premiers now in Canada agree that their top constitutional priority is to get back Quebec within the Canadian Constitution. I think this is a good day for Canada.
Discussion will be based on the Quebec proposals for entry into the Constitution. After that's achieved, there are certainly other matters that other premiers want to discuss.
The premiers were so pleased they could agree on Quebec that they talked freely about a second agreement, even before it was officially written up. This one's on free trade.
We're recognizing the potential problems, but we're endorsing full speed ahead, because we know that we're best to try and see if we can get a good agreement rather than not try at all.
Getty's interpretation of their collective stand on free trade is a touch enthusiastic. Ontario and Manitoba agree there is some middle ground, but they are a little more cautious.
I'm not sure I'd use the word full speed ahead. As you know, we are watching these things very carefully. There's a mechanism in place to study these matters. We'll be meeting with the Prime Minister. We've asked for a full briefing.
There was a lot of statesmanship here today, and that was no accident. Most of the premiers here are Tories, and the two main points to come out of this conference endorse the federal government's two main initiatives, free trade and Quebec and the Constitution. It's a far cry from premiers' conferences of the past, where premiers would leave angry with each other and with the federal government. Anna Maria Tremonti, CBC News, Edmonton.
The South African State President, P.W. Botha, lashed out at the West in a speech this afternoon to his party's National Congress. It's the first full meeting of the party in 4 years. Botha told the 3,000 delegates that the international campaign of sanctions against South Africa is one of the most extreme forms of political fraud in the 20th century. He said that South Africa's struggle is ideological and not racial. Botha said the country will not only survive sanctions, but will grow stronger because of them.
We are being agitated against worldwide and threatened in the name of freedom and liberation. Pressure is being exerted on us as the arch oppressors of our time. Many of the methods involved are suspect because of either the slyness or the dishonesty involved. Still, the intensity of the phenomenon reveals a vague underlying realization that what is now happening here is of vital importance, not only to our part of the world, but in some way also to humanity at large.
7 American delegates have completed 2 days of talks with Soviet officials outside Moscow. As Wyatt Andrews of CBS News reports, both sides are saying little about the amount of progress made, if any.
It is the final session of these unusual talks. With the press blackout continuing, there is no indication yet of any progress or failure. Chief American Delegate Paul Nitze would only consent to a one-word description of the meetings.
They were serious talks.
But whether the two sides are hearing anything that would lead to an arms control compromise is in doubt. The Soviet side is no more encouraging, typically indicating they are still waiting for American flexibility.
We have already made very important steps during the talks, and we expect the American side to respond positively to our proposals.
Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Moscow.
French peacekeeping troops found themselves under siege in southern Lebanon today. Muslim fighters surrounded French positions after clashes that left 3 Shiite Muslims dead and 17 French soldiers wounded. Only 3 of the wounded French soldiers could be taken to hospital because of the siege. The trouble started last night when French troops killed 2 Amal officials at a UN checkpoint. Sporadic machine gun and rocket fire continued throughout the day. The war between Iran and Iraq has flared up again. This morning, a big explosion rocked Iraq's capital, Baghdad. Tehran said it fired the missile at an oil refinery in the outskirts of Baghdad to retaliate for Iraqi raids against Iranian civilians. Hours later, Iraq struck at an Iranian oil terminal, setting 3 tankers ablaze. Sources say a number of people died in the raids. On a remote mountainside in central Japan, memorial services were held today for the victims of a plane crash 1 year ago. 520 people were killed when a Japan Airlines jumbo jet lost a piece of its tail and plunged into the ground. Steve Mallory of NBC News reports.
This morning, more than 100 relatives of those who died in the worst single-plane crash in aviation history hiked to the site where the Japan Airlines Boeing 747 went down. 4 people survived that crash. The former president of JAL paid his respects at the site and again apologized for the disaster. Investigators still think the accident was caused when a rear bulkhead ruptured and destroyed vital steering mechanisms. The cause of the accident is still under investigation, but according to a Japan Airlines spokesman, the preliminary findings have resulted in 2 major design changes, and they're being implemented worldwide on Boeing 747s. Those changes include extra shields to protect vital steering mechanisms. JAL has also doubled its maintenance safety checks, but that hasn't satisfied many affected by last year's accident. Several relatives of those who died in the JAL crash marked today's anniversary by filing criminal complaints against the airline, the manufacturer, and Japan's transportation agency, citing human error and negligence. Other relatives attended ceremonies at Buddhist temples and at individual grave sites. Keiko Kawakami, one of the survivors, visited the graves of her father, mother, and sister, as she does every day. Steve Mallory, NBC News, Tokyo.
And that's the national news.
Not after what's happened.
Coming up on Here and Now.
Anyway, we're ready to hit the bricks again. No question about that.
Talking wage parity, NAPE and Treasury Board will try again to avoid the resumption of an illegal strike. That story and more coming up after the weather.
Lights flash, the chant begins, then the anthem, the rock anthem. Polytail's Rock Anthems, a double album you'll never forget. The music is raw power. The energy is awesome. Never has there been a collection like Rock Anthems. In stores now, Polytail's double-barreled rock anthology. Rock Anthems, it's hot.
How's she going? Clyde Crump here to tell you that interest rates have dropped at Terranova Motors. Until further notice, Terranova Motors is offering 6.8% financing for 36 months on Acadians. You pay only $6,855 plus tax and license, and finance at only 6.8% on the 3-door Acadian hatchback with GM's 3-year, 60,000-kilometer warranty included at no extra charge. Lease for only $147.89 per month at Terranova Motors, Topsail Road, phone 364-4130. It's magic.
Can you think of anything that tastes better than a pizza from Venice Pizzeria? On or off the field, you set your standards and strive for the very best you can give. So you'll be glad to know that at Venice Pizzeria, they aim for perfection. Venice Pizzeria is open 7 days a week from noon to 3 a.m. Pick up a pizza at Venice Pizzeria or have it delivered. Either way, you'll see that a good, strong team effort, on or off the field, makes for the best. Venice Pizzeria, 81 Military Road and 50 Bannister Street, Mount Pearl.
93 CJYQ, a musical fantasy.
She's my little scoop. You don't know what I got. I reminisce about the days of old with that old time of rock and roll. Born in the USA, I was born in the USA.
Favorites of the 60s, 70s, and 80s on Light Rock, Less Talk, 93 CJYQ.
McDonald's McDLT. No taste sounds quite like it.
No taste sings so hot to me. There's no cooler melody. So hot, so cool, so fresh to me. No taste sounds like McDLT. It's a good time for the great taste. No taste sounds like McDLT. McDonald's.
Well, it cleared up beautifully this afternoon, and I heard a rumor that's supposed to stick around for a while. Let's go to Karl Wells at the Weather Board now and find out if that's right.
You heard right, Ann, but only for the island, it looks like. Today, a word about today. Labrador had mainly cloudy skies today. It was sunny in Goose Bay, however, highs ranging from about 15 to 19 in Labrador, except cooler in the west. Lab City, Wabush, Churchill Falls, only about 12, 13 degrees today. On the island, generally cloudy weather today with some fog along the south coast. Did clear up later on this afternoon on the Avalon, giving some sunny breaks. Highs ranging from 15 to 22 degrees today on the island. The 22 reported at Gander. Now, moving through tonight will be a frontal system, and as this moves through tonight, it's going to give some cloud and some shower activity to the island. Then tomorrow, it looks like there will be some cloud behind this trough for Labrador, but by tomorrow, the island will have cleared out, and it looks like right now the island will be having mainly sunny skies tomorrow, along with, for Labrador, moderate westerly winds and light to moderate westerly winds for the island with the circulation around this trough. There will be some shower activity in Labrador, a few showers, also possibly a few thunder showers. Here's your local forecast now. For Wabush and Labrador City, tonight it's going to be cloudy with a few showers, the low 6 degrees. Tomorrow will be cloudy with a few showers, strong westerly winds, highs ranging from 14 to 17 degrees. For Churchill Falls, tonight cloudy with a few showers, low of 5. Tomorrow cloudy with a few showers, moderate westerlies, 15 degrees. For Goose Bay, Nain to Hopedale, tonight a few showers and the chance of a thunder shower, 5 to 9 degrees. Tomorrow it'll be cloudy with moderate westerly winds, highs ranging from 15 to 19. For Postville to Cartwright, Bateau to Lanceauclair, tonight showers and the chance of a thunder shower, 6 to 9 degrees. Tomorrow it will be cloudy with sunny periods, moderate westerly winds, highs ranging from 15 to 19 degrees Celsius. And for all of the island, it looks like it'll be clearing later on tonight as that system moves through. The lows from 8 to 11 degrees. Tomorrow it will be mainly sunny with light to moderate westerly winds, highs ranging from 17 to 21 degrees. And right now it looks like on Thursday the island will have a continuation of the sun, and it'll be cloudy with some shower activity for Labrador on Thursday. And we'll have a look beyond Thursday later in the program, along with a few more tidbits for you. Right now it's back to Wayne.
Thanks, Karl. Well, returning to our top story tonight, the first Canadian property the Sri Lankan refugees set foot on was the longliners of 4 fishermen from St. Mary's Bay. Susan Newhook waited for 2 of the fishermen to come home to Admiral's Beach last night, and she has this report.
Yeah, we were listening to them there too, yeah. You never heard the album under the job?
People in Admiral's Beach were glued to their CB radios last night, waiting for the Dalton brothers to get in. Gus and Alvin's longliners finally came into the harbor around 1:30 this morning. Each of them had one of the 2 lifeboats in tow. Gus Dalton went out looking for cod yesterday morning and wound up being the first to sight the Sri Lankans instead.
Had some nets. It's 45 nets had, and see how these heads sticking up out the wire, the flag.
He called in other boats and took as many refugees aboard as he could. The 28-foot boats didn't look as if they had held over 150 people. Last night, all that was left in them was a few personal items like a man's shoe, and a woman's, and a child, and what few navigation aids they had, things like binoculars and a very small outboard engine. Even though there's little official news, the fishermen had plenty to tell about the refugees who seemed to come from nowhere.
They wanted to go to Canada.
Is that what they told you?
Yeah.
They went from Salika to India, where they got an agent ship, and from there, the agent ship to come. They didn't even know, they even asked us where we were, and we told them Newfoundland. They never heard tell of that before, so they didn't know they're coming here, but they're looking forward to Montreal and Toronto for some reason.
Ron Dalton also has a theory about the mysterious mothership. Its name was sanded off the lifeboats, but he says he can make out the name Regina Maris, though other investigators have found different letters in the white smudges. All the theories will take a while to work out, and after the lifeboats were taken away by the RCMP, the fishermen turned to the job of landing a small day's catch. It's a catch that was almost forgotten when 2 lifeboats appeared out of the fog. I'm Susan Newhook.
A 15-year-old Cartwright boy appeared in provincial court this afternoon in Happy Valley Goose Bay to answer a charge of criminal negligence causing death. He is accused in the death of a 16-year-old Thomas Manuel Clark. Clark died from a gunshot wound to the chest. The accident happened Sunday in Bateau. After today's court appearance, the 15-year-old boy was released. His case has been postponed until September 22nd in Cartwright, and he's expected to enter a plea at that time.
There have been no therapeutic abortions in Newfoundland for the past 2 weeks because the clinic, which does most of the operations, doesn't have a doctor who can perform the procedure. The doctor who was in charge at the Health Sciences Center had a heart attack 5 weeks ago, and the hospital hasn't been able to find a replacement. The hospital's medical director, Dr. Karl Robbins, says it looks as if local gynecologists don't want to take on the job, and he may try to recruit on the mainland. In the meantime, about 20 women have received approval for abortions from the clinic since the service was discontinued. There are provisions within the Medicare plan to pay for patients who now have to go to the mainland to have abortions performed.
Negotiations resume next week between NAPE and the provincial government. The return to the bargaining table comes 2 weeks before a deadline set by NAPE to resume its illegal strike over wage parity. Pauline Thornhill reports.
It all began here in March, when 5,500 Newfoundland public service employees illegally walked off the job. The workers wanted wage parity with other public service employees within Newfoundland, and they still do. Contract talks broke off between NAPE and the Provincial Treasury Board in June. At that time, NAPE President Fraser March promised another strike would resume in the fall if a settlement wasn't reached over the summer.
There's no question about it that closing down part of the public service, especially this part during the months of June, July and August, would not exactly cause government to run for the hills.
Now the negotiators are heading back to the bargaining table, with talks scheduled for next week. According to Labour Minister Ted Blanchard, the move to resume talks came from Fraser March.
About a month ago, I had a meeting with Mr. March about another matter, and the thing swung around to a discussion about MOS and GS negotiations. And Mr. March expressed some thoughts that we should get back together.
After approaching Blanchard, March wrote him this letter, saying NAPE was willing to meet with the Department of Labour again. He also included a copy of a letter he'd earlier written to the Treasury Board President, Neil Windsor, about setting a date to negotiate. What they decided on was the week of August 18th. Blanchard is optimistic a settlement will be reached this time.
Well, Mr. March has seemed very genuine in the letter that he sent to me, also in the one copy I got of the letter to Mr. Windsor. He's genuinely interested, he tells us, in making a settlement, and we're very pleased to hear that.
NAPE Representative Peter Ivany is also hoping workers won't be forced to walk out in September.
It is our intention that, September 3rd is the date that we have set, that if we have not a settlement, obviously we have to hit the streets again, I guess. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we have no choice, but surely we're going to try to do all in our utmost to reach a settlement. There is a settlement there. We feel it, and I'm sure that the employer must realize that too.
The workers' feelings about the chance of a settlement this time around are mixed.
Well, the way government is jerking us around all the time, something's going to really have to happen.
Oh, I think it's great, definitely. Yeah, we got to really fight for it, and we got to get it right, one way or the other. I think we're going to do okay, for sure.
NAPE spokesman Peter Ivany says letters are on the way to the union members, informing them of the talks' resumption. Labour Minister Ted Blanchard and Deputy Minister Howard Noseworthy will be meeting with Fraser March this Thursday. The meeting has been set up to help brief the Labour Department on the issues before the contract talks actually start again on Monday. For Here and Now, I'm Pauline Thornhill.
To come on Here and Now.
It makes Regatta so much more special, right? All the excitement and everything, all the teams racing and competing after one championship.
Up the pond in Labrador. It's not well known, but there's a popular regatta in western Labrador.
You can go anywhere in Canada, but you'll not find better petroleum products.
than those refined here at Canada's largest refinery. Irving gasolines have the highest octane and a special additive in all pumps to clean dirty carburetors and foul fuel injectors. This means high performance and better mileage for you. Available wherever you see the Irving sign. Irving, always there.
People are always making up stories about big guys like me, like I change flat tires by lifting up my car, or I eat 2 steaks and a dozen eggs for breakfast. Come on, but there's one thing I'm very big on. Miller Lite. Light tastes great, and what's important, tastes less filling than regular beer. But a dozen eggs, I wouldn't have room for lunch.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
And hey, I've never lifted a car. I drive a truck.
A heavenly voice, a true superstar. This is Judy Collins. Amazing Grace, a beautiful new album from Quality Records. An inspiring and sensitive new collection of songs that celebrate the beauty of nature and the joy of life.
Morning has broken like the first morning.
This is Judy Collins at her best.
Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air.
This album is like no other. 16 distinctive and uplifting performances, as warm as love, as bright as all outdoors. Judy Collins, Amazing Grace, not available in stores. Stand by to order from Quality Records and Tapes. Visa, MasterCard, or COD orders, call St. John's at 722-3741. Or save COD charges by sending $9.98 plus $2 postage and handling to Judy Collins, Box 8035, St. John's. Call now. Operators are standing by. Remember, this offer could end at any time, so call 722-3741 now. Or send $9.98 plus $2 postage and handling to Judy Collins, Box 8035, St. John's.
Quebec air officials now have an idea how much an accident involving one of their jets at Wabush Airport will cost. Airline spokesman Captain Dusty Thompson says the cost of recovery, repair, and maintenance is expected to be about $2 million. The Boeing 737 jet wound up in a bog about 100 feet from the end of a runway after the pilot aborted a takeoff attempt. A subsequent investigation revealed power was lost when a bird was sucked into one of the engines. The jet sat in the bog for a week before work crews hauled it out. The aircraft was flown to Montreal, but Captain Thompson says it won't go back in service until some parts arrive from the Boeing plant. Thompson also said the biggest portion of the $2 million cost will be covered by insurance.
We've all heard about the St. John's Regatta, and most of us know about the regattas in Harbour Grace and Placentia, but not too many people outside Western Labrador are aware that rowing crews and racing shells compete every year outside Labrador City. The 1986 version of their regatta was run on Friday, and despite the fact many people have left the area for the summer, organizers report a record attendance. As Jacinta Woll reports, the organizers are also pleased with the number of women who have become involved in the sport.
It might not be the biggest regatta in the province, but for people in Wabush and Labrador City, it offers them a chance to get out and enjoy the summer weather, along with the races and the various activities along lakeside. There were 25 teams entered in this year's races. That in itself is a record, but 15 of those teams were women. Organizers are pleased with the interest, but are still trying to figure out why so many women got involved this year. For Michelle Wiseman, the answer is simple. She got involved with rowing 2 years ago because it's fun.
You start off slow, so you build up your strength and your endurance. You can go along, do it in faster time and stuff. And if you got to work, you can arrange it around your working hours, and more or less the team is arranged around you. You don't have to be there at a specific time, and it's around your lifestyle.
Sue Pollitt, Wiseman's teammate, has been rowing now for 3 years.
It makes regatta so much more special, right? All the excitement and everything, all the teams racing and competing after one championship.
Of course, not all of the action is confined to the lake. On shore, people are having fun, trying their luck on the spin of a wheel. This lady was obviously pleased at her good fortune.
I don't want a teddy bear for my little boy. He's gone in the cabin with his father today, see, and he wanted to come, right? And he wanted to go to the cabin too, so.
Then, of course, there are those who aren't so fortunate, as a local service club tries to make money. A bullseye, and this fellow needs a change of clothes. This is the 14th year for the Labrador West Regatta, and each year it seems to be getting better. For committee head Linda Allen, it's the highlight of the summer.
To do something here in the summer, so a lot of us don't like down the woods and that, so this was great recreation sport for us.
With another successful regatta over, organizers can now sit back for a while. But it's a safe bet they'll be thinking of how they can improve on things for next year. Jacinta Wall, CBC News in Western Labrador.
Newfoundland manufacturers and suppliers stand to benefit as a result of changes in the way the federal and provincial governments buy their goods. The two governments are pooling their purchases on some goods, and efforts are to be made to allow Newfoundland manufacturers and suppliers to supply Newfoundland government offices. The Minister of Public Works, Haig Young, estimates it could mean an extra $200 million to the Newfoundland economy every year. In addition, purchases under $5,000 are to be rotated among local companies. And we'll be back with more, including sports, after this.
New from Cream of the West, Fast Rise Bread and Roll Mix. Makes bread up to 50% faster than with ordinary bread mix. Simply add the yeast right into the Fast Rise mix, then add water. After kneading, place the dough directly into your pan and let it rise. Once. That's right, just one rising. Then into the oven. The result? Beautiful bread and so much faster. Up to 50% faster. From Cream of the West.
From the world's richest coffee beans comes the world's richest tasting coffee. Nescafe Instant Coffee. The richer, more satisfying coffee taste of Nescafe Rich Blend. There are no richer tasting coffees than the coffees of Nescafe.
Imagine the world's sharpest knives working at rotary speeds. Direct from France comes the amazing Mouli, the rotary blade kitchen tool used by millions in Europe. Never before have you been able to process so many foods so quickly and for so little money. Here's how Mouli works. Insert one of 5 different blades, load the hopper, turn the handle, and look. Have you ever made home fries this easily? The same blade makes cucumber slices perfect every time. Slice carrots and celery for soups and stews. Slice radishes a whole bag at a time. How long would it take you to do what the Mouli did? Change to the Julienne blade and make mounds of coleslaw. Make fresh Julienne French fries. Change blades again and make hash browns. Enjoy delicious potatoes any way you like them. Watch this amazing test. Shred 3 whole onions in the Mouli. Shred 3 in this expensive food processor. Mouli gets the job done quicker and without messy cleanup. The secret is Mouli's large hopper. It holds all the ingredients for an entire health salad. As the safety handle presses the food against the rotary blades, out pours delicious salad. You won't need this old-fashioned grater. Mouli grates coconut, chocolate, cheese. Look at this mozzarella. Use the finer grating blade to grate nuts, hard cheeses, make breadcrumbs. Grate a stack of graham crackers for a pie crust you'll never forget. Mouli is strong. It even shaves ice for tempting cool drinks. Best of all, Mouli rinses clean and stores quickly in any drawer. You get the Mouli, all 5 blades, and our money-back guarantee. Order now, and we include this amazing knife with a famous blade design like those you've seen on TV. Yours to keep just for trying the French Mouli. Here's how to order.
To order, rush $17.95 to Mouli, Box 8264, St. John's, A1B 3N4. That's Mouli, Box 8264, St. John's, A1B 3N4. Money back if not delighted. Remember, the TV knife is yours to keep just for trying the amazing Mouli. Rush $17.95 to Mouli, Box 8264, St. John's, Newfoundland, A1B 3N4.
And now the sports. There are 2 games this afternoon in Major League Baseball. First in the National League, the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Chicago Cubs are tied 1-1 in the second inning. In the American League out on the West Coast, the Seattle Mariners lead the A's in Oakland 1-0 in the fifth inning. Tonight, the Expos play host to the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Blue Jays are in Baltimore to take on the Orioles. Meanwhile, the Montreal Expos keep sliding farther behind first place New York in the National League East. Last night, the Expos dropped a 5-4 decision to the visiting St. Louis Cardinals. CBC Sports' George Athens reports.
We pick up the action in the third inning. Game is tied at 1. Kurt Ford is the batter, and he takes Floyd Yeomans over the fence in right field for a 2-run homer. The Cardinals going ahead 3-1. And it stayed that way until the 6th when Tim Wallach hit up the middle, scored Tim Raines. Raines had reached base on a leadoff walk. After that, Vance Law singled, and Wallace Johnson did the same, his single, scoring Wallach from third, and that tied the game at 3. The Expos took the lead in the 7th, but the Redbirds came flying back here in the 8th with this 2-run homer by Mike LaValliere. 5-4 St. Louis, and that was the final score.
Still with baseball, California third baseman Doug DeCinces and New York Mets first baseman Keith Hernandez are baseball's outstanding players of the past week. DeCinces earned the American League honor by batting .421 with 4 homers and 7 RBIs. Hernandez took the National League accolade by batting .429 with 12 RBIs. Yesterday was the first day of the Players International Tennis Tournament in Toronto, and the first 2 Canadians to compete were eliminated. Toronto's Bill Cowan was beaten by American Greg Holmes, while Oakville's Martin Wistenholm was defeated by Nigeria's Nduk Odizor. CBC Sports' Don Martin takes this look at the Odizor-Wistenholm match.
Odizor, the big serving Nigerian in the near court against Wistenholm, who was at times a big returning Canadian. In fact, Wistenholm was impressive in the first set, winning more than just a few points off Odizor's serve.
Big serve specialist.
But Nduka refuses to be broken and holds his serve through the opening set. And when Wistenholm ventures a little too close to the net, Odizor raises the question of personal safety. They go to a tiebreaker, and it's tied at 3 until Odizor comes up with a let-cord winner down the line, and then follows with the ace, his third of the match, as he takes the first set 7-6, 7-5 in the tiebreak. And then at match point, with Odizor serving as strongly as ever, he takes the net and takes out Martin Wistenholm. And Nduka Odizor moving into the second round, 7-6, 6-4.
The 1986 Labatt's National Junior Men's Softball Championships began this morning in St. John's. In the first game at the Lions Park, New Brunswick was shut out by Nova Scotia 2-0. Manitoba then shut out PEI 7-0, and Saskatchewan took 10 innings to edge BC 4-3. Here in the Ontario-Quebec matchup, Jacques Bouchard of Quebec hits a home run in the 4th inning to give Quebec a 1-0 lead. Quebec went on to win the game 2-1. Newfoundland is playing its first game against Alberta at 7:30. The second Newfoundland team, the host team, plays its first game later this evening. Jill Windsor of St. John's has placed 4th in an international junior golf tournament held in Bermuda this past weekend. Windsor's .328 score over 4 rounds was 15 strokes off the winner, Christine de Klerk of Quebec. The tournament saw 90 golfers representing the USA, Bermuda, Canada, and the Bahamas and the UK. Windsor plays out of the Ballyhaley Club. Now that they appear to have a good quarterback, the Calgary Stampeders are out to make sure he doesn't get away. The Stamps have announced that they've signed Rick Johnson to a 2-year deal that has made him the highest paid player on the club. CBC Sports' Marty Haig reports.
Johnson has been having a very good 1986 season, but he says it's been tough playing while negotiating a contract.
It's not a good situation, but it really didn't hurt me that bad. Worst game was Saskatchewan. I'm sure that didn't help, but I went on the BC game, and we were right in the heat of it right then, and I said, hey, if you want to get any kind of dollars, you got to go out and play football. So I thought I did some things well in that game.
Johnson joined the Stampeders last season. He's adapted very well to Canadian football after being trained in the American game.
Well, I'm surprised in the fact that last year I was in such a maze. I didn't know what the heck was going on. trying to figure out where the 12th player on the field was at all times. You know, I was used to 11 and things like that, but, you know, when I came into camp this year, our coaches did such a thorough job of explaining things and laying it out for us. It was so easy. You know, I was very surprised in that fact.
Johnson is very confident, and he's certainly enjoying the game. He copies the attitude of the quarterback from his hometown.
And a man that's had a lot of effect on my personal performance has been Jim McMahon. You know, I'm from Chicago, and I watch the Bears all the time, and I watched that guy, and I said, he's just having fun out there, you know, headbutting the lineman and just one of the guys, and that's what it's all about. So I try to go at it with a little bit of a Jim McMahon attitude.
The Ottawa Rough Riders have released quarterback J.C. Watts. Watts, the team's #1 quarterback for 3 years, will be placed on waivers, and if no other team is willing to take on his $200,000 a year contract, he'll become a free agent. With Watts gone, the Riders will go with Tom Burgess, Gilbert Renfro, and Todd Dillon at quarterback. Speculation is that Dillon, formerly of the USFL, will eventually become the starter, but right now that honor goes to Burgess. Watts was the highest paid player in club history. And a report in today's New York Times says New York Rangers defenseman Barry Beck will issue a statement today asking the NHL club to trade him. The story quotes an unidentified source close to Beck who says Beck wants the trade because of differences with coach Ted Sator. And that's the sports. Now to recap the weather. First of all, tonight it looks like it's going to be cloudy for everybody with some rain shower activity as trough and accompanying frontal system move through Newfoundland and Labrador. Tomorrow, though, it looks like while Labrador will continue with the cloud and some shower activity, possibly some thunder showers as well, the island will clear out. And it looks like right now all of the island should have sunny skies tomorrow. There may be some cloud tomorrow morning, early tomorrow morning, but certainly it should clear off by afternoon for everybody on the island. Light to moderate westerly winds throughout Newfoundland and Labrador tomorrow. The temperature's not looking too bad as well, anywhere from 17 to 21 degrees, and of course a little bit cooler in the onshore areas with that westerly wind off the water. Now let's check the 3-day outlook, and we begin with Thursday for Labrador. It's going to be cloudy with showers on that day. Sunny skies for the island on Thursday. Friday, cloudy with sunny periods for Labrador, and the same for the island, cloudy with sunny periods. Saturday, Labrador back into some cloud and a few showers, and on the island on Saturday, it looks like it's going to be cloudy with sunny periods. So it looks like for the island anyway, several good days in store. That's if the forecast holds. A gentleman asked me today if it was all right to cut some hay over the next 2 or 3 days. Well, I guess he's got his answer. Ann.
Thanks, Karl. Well, highlighting the news before we leave you this evening, 152 people who were plucked from lifeboats yesterday off the southeast coast of the island have arrived in St. John's safe and sound. But there's still lots of mystery surrounding those people. They say they're Tamils, a minority group from Sri Lanka, a small island off the south coast of India. Authorities are now trying to find out how they got to Newfoundland and why they were adrift in lifeboats. All unionized construction sites in the province have been shut down by a strike in the industry. 5,000 workers from a dozen trade unions hit the picket lines this morning. The main issue in the dispute is double-breasting. That's our show. That's Here and Now for Tuesday, the 12th of August. Thank you for joining us, and good night.
Good night.
Tonight at 9:30, join us for Adventure on Remington Steel. At midnight, Mrs. Naugatuck's in Love on Maud. Our late-night feature movie at 12:30 is Rhapsody in Blue, starring Robert Alda and Joan Leslie.
From the skies above our land to deep below our seas, summertime adventures. This Land, tonight on CBC.